got it coming. Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things every time I come here is that all the Harley folks have to look at this nice emblem up here, sliced logo of an Indian. I always get a good kick out of that. I usually do all my thinking and engineering behind a set of handlebars. The only problem with that is I can't write anything down. Sometimes it's night at night, so when I get to my destination I can never remember what I was going to say or do. And this one's no exception. I tried to jot down a few notes. I'd like to thank the Sturgis Motorcycle Museum for such a fine honour. I'm truly honoured to be here. I'd like to thank my wife Carolyn, my son Ross, my friends, industry associates, fellow bike builders, Marjorie, known as Shadow, who did a lot of work for this inductee and got a lot of the stuff ready, and Christine as well. I'd also like to recognise Pappy and Pearl Hall for kicking this whole event off. It really is hard to believe that I've been around the industry for almost 3 decades and worked alongside some of the finest in the industry. I bought my first motorcycle when I left school, a little Honda 100. My parents weren't into motorcycle, I wasn't allowed to get motorcycles, so my friends would talk motorcycles at school, I couldn't. So, but I convinced my dad that, hey, I got a job, I needed something to get to work on, it's cheap, and hey, you know what, you could learn to ride it too. And he never did take up that offer, but I got my motorcycle through that. I got bigger motorcycles, and got a British motorcycle, which I wasn't really fond of, the Queen of the British. I really resent that bike, it went fast. I really hated it. But, I looked around for something American, and no offense, but the early Harleys just didn't do anything for me. And then I was riding on vacation one day and I saw this bike go the other way. And I thought, man, what the heck was that? I chased the guy down, it was an old Indian. And it was a nice bike, he wanted $2,000 for it. Like, well, that was about $500 too much. So I put an ad in the paper, and finally I found an Indian, I took it home and I pulled it apart and I restored it. Couldn't get parts. Well, I didn't know anybody in America that made parts, so I had to make the parts myself. So through that, my friends heard about me making parts, I was making bits and pieces for them and amongst my job. But that began my first love affair with Indians. I remember as a kid growing up in New Zealand, land way down under. New Zealand's 2 islands, we've got a lot of beach. Where I live, it's only about 15, 20 miles to the beach, either coast, East Coast, West Coast. I used to do a lot of fishing. So if I couldn't borrow my dad's van to throw my 16-foot fishing rod on, go to the beach, surf cast, I'd just have to stick it on my motorcycle, go out there after work. So I was having a little Honda, and you go out the dirt and gravel roads and carrying a 16-foot fishing rod, I just let the clutch go. There's no traffic lights where I was. So the only problem is I just hoped I never caught any fish because I didn't have any real good way of getting them back. I didn't usually catch a lot of fish, so. But I just remember being on the beach there, and I'd have 10 miles of beach to myself. And there'd be a rocky point to my left, 10 miles to my right. And I'd be looking out across that ocean, the sun would be setting, may have already set. The moon would be rising up above the horizon, above the ocean. And I always remember, what else is there out there for me? And I never really knew. And it's hard to imagine because you haven't been anywhere and you're on a country with 2 islands, and it seems like a big place, but when you haven't been anywhere else, there's nothing to put it in perspective. But one day I finished my trade as an engine rebuilder, and I just woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm out of here. I went down to travel agent, booked a flight to the place to the other end of the world. Most New Zealanders go to Australia. That's just a hop, skip and a jump. I said, no, I'm going to start at the other end of the world. I bought a flight. My flight landed in Japan, spent some time in Japan, Hawaii, Canada, and that was my first sampling of North America. Bought a motorcycle up in Canada. It was a Honda CB 750, 1979. I bought it had been in a little wreck, got off an insurance company. Anything I could save $1 on, that got me further down the road. I left New Zealand, I was on a mission to stay away 6 months, at least. So every dollar I could save was $1 that got me further down the road. So I did truly find that I met the nicest people on Honda. I'd stay in campgrounds. I was not under a roof. I couldn't afford, I didn't want to spend any time under a roof. I wanted to really sample North America. I wanted to sample Americans. I wanted to be with the people. And the only way I found I could do that was be in a tent and being on a motorcycle, being by myself. I met fellow Harley riders, Honda riders, all creeds and races of people. And it was truly the greatest experience and my first real great introduction to a lot of fantastic Americans. I found out that Americans are extremely warm, friendly, loving people. And motorcycles was a common bond. No matter where I went, I always had a friend. Traveled extensively in the western United States, and then I ended up in Southern California, where I ended up at an Indian motorcycle shop of all places. And through that I found that people needed I recognized that people needed a higher level of quality of product and innovative parts too to keep their motorcycles on the road. The old parts are okay, but when I'm into riding and I like people to be able to ride their bikes and enjoy them, so that's where a lot of my innovativeness from being in New Zealand kicked into place. So we decided to start Kiwi Indian Motorcycle Company in 1988. After designing and developing over 2,500 different parts, one of my closest friends, James Clark of James Gasket, suggested that I make crankcases. I made all the other individual parts for the engine and transmission. He said, well, if you make crankcases, now you're in charge of your own destiny. So, yeah, okay, that's cool, but James, there's still a stack of old crankcases out there. He goes, Mike, he said, they'll dry up one day, and he said, you need to be in charge of your own destiny. Trust me, put the money in it to do crankcases, and now you'll be able to build brand new engines. So that was the start of the founding block to start Kiwi Indian Motorcycle Company, develop it into a motorcycle company. I believe in the need to carry history forwards by sharing my passion and devotion to the classic Indian motorcycles for others to enjoy. Throughout the years there have been many attempts to resurrect the Indian brand, but none have been able to capture the classic styling, timeless beauty, and engineering of what Indian truly represents. Our goal at Kiwi Indian is to emulate the true spirit of the brand. Today we proudly manufacture 5 different eras of classic Indian motorcycles. We just released a 1910 era 4-track racer at the AMD show here in Sturgis. We've got a 1929 101 Chow, 1939 Sport Chief, a 1950s Chief Roadmaster, and a Barbara model. Some future models will be a departure from our usual Indian lineage, which will include other little American, there'll be a departure from our usual Indian lineage, which will include such other brands from another little motorcycle company in the Midwest. Every day I ride a motorcycle, and it's an Indian. I don't have anything beyond 1953. If I've got to go to New York to a road run, I've got to get on one of my old Indians. And I purposely left most of them 6 volts, so I can't hook up radios or any heaters or any fancy gadgetry. I just like basic motorcycling. We're in a world where we've got a lot of techno gadgets, and I just really like some things in life to be simple. When I get on a motorcycle, I just find it great therapy. And I just really enjoy going across the Midway. It doesn't matter where it is. I remember going across Oklahoma one year, and you smell the smells. I mean, you see the farmers out there harvesting and moving equipment, and it was just, that's part of America's breadbasket, and it was just really great to smell the smells. In 2009, I became a U.S. citizen, and I'm very proud to be an American. a lot of persistence of my wife. It took 20 years to do actually, because the government twice lost all my paperwork. And I didn't even get a sorry letter, you just don't know where to start again. In closing, I'd like to wish Caroline a happy birthday, my best friend. I believe life is about building relationships, and that is significant to one's beliefs. And one final saying from a fellow New Zealander, Bert Monroe of the world's fastest Indian fame. You live more. I'm going to change it around just a little bit because, if it was in New Zealand, his lingo, you wouldn't quite get the whole thing, but so I'll change it around and Americanize it. You live more than 5 minutes balls out on a motorcycle than most people do in a lifetime. Thank you.
That was a lot of thought in those rides, Kiwi. Whoa, dude. Congratulations, brother. Just a